The transfer portal is cooking. Joe DeLeone here with Ryan Roberts to break down some of the biggest news that you might have missed in the transfer portal this week. Ryan, we got to start by talking about the action happening with the Indiana Hoosiers. News came out this week that Mark Cuban's bankrolling things, and we're seeing the results. Josh Hoover commits, Nick Marsh commits, and they've gotten a plethora of other guys that are rounding out the rest of this roster. But my attention goes immediately to Hoover and to Marsh, because Marsh is a potential 1,000-yard plus guy in this offense, and Hoover is a player who could be like Fernando Mendoza, who plays well and goes on to become a first-round pick in 2027. What are your thoughts on this Indiana group that they put together?
I mean, I would actually love to start with Josh Hoover, Joe, because you know that I was a Hoover fan when he was at TCU, but there's too much up and down with Josh Hoover in Sonny Dykes' offense the past 2 years. This year, started off the season great, had a really rough middle, and then he had a pretty good end as well, right? So like the peaks and valleys are very high for a really talented thrower. I mean, he's got some incredible arm talent. He is an NFL passer without question, but I love the fact that you now get to go with Curt Cignetti for a year to hopefully develop the technical and nuance side of playing the quarterback position. Stop fading off your back foot for no reason, right? Like, let's play from a more firm pockets. All those things we saw maturation from a guy like Fernando Mendoza this year. Although he's a much different body type, a much different type of quarterback, I think that he is going to be a guy that is really going to excel under Cignetti for a single year. And now he has a guy like Nick Marsh to throw to, who, for people that haven't seen Nick Marsh, because he's been hidden behind a putrid Michigan State offense over the last couple of years under Jonathan Smith and that rebuild. 6'3", 205, 210 pounds, somewhere in that ballpark. That's your true boundary threat. He's got good straight line speed, but he is going to win with his catch radius and his stride length. So I think Hoover to Marsh could be a really fun pairing in 2026.
Yeah, Hoover definitely catches my attention, and anyone who was really locked in and keeping up with everything last year, it was tracking Mendoza, understood that Mendoza showed talent and in the right situation could have gone on to become an early draft pick, and that came to fruition. I think that there's now a clear track record for what Hoover can become in this system. There's a lot more of a pro-style translation for how Indiana runs their offense. So I think that this pairing, they could not at all lose their footing. Forget about like draft projection here for these two guys. There's a real scenario where they get right back where they were, where they're in the Big Ten championship game, where they're going on a run in the college football playoff. We'll see how far they end up making it with how they perform on Friday. Texas Tech,
and
Ryan.
Joe, before we flip over, can I ask you one question? Like, if you're a quarterback today, if you're Josh Hoover, if you're Brennan Sorsby, if you're Sam Levitt, if you're anybody that's in the transfer portal market, is there a more attractive spot right now than Curt Cignetti in Indiana with what you just saw Mendoza do, from a talented yet raw player in some capacities at Cal to being potential first overall pick? At what point in our lifetime has Indiana, or anybody's lifetime, Indiana been that type of attractive destination? It's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot of stability there, too. There's not really a lot of coaching movement that's come out of there as well. So that's what definitely makes it extremely enticing. Texas Tech has also been incredibly active in the transfer portal, but the biggest move that they made was going and getting Brendan Sorsby, the quarterback from Cincinnati. He was a guy who was awaiting NFL feedback on if he was going to declare for 2026. Instead, he's going to be taking a massive $5 million contract to play for the Red Raiders. He is a guy who could have gone in the first round this year. It probably was not totally certain, but there's limited quarterback options, so maybe a team like the Steelers would have been desperate enough to pick him. Sorsby, though, we already have evidence of how well he can play in the Big 12 with a much weaker supporting cast. So now that he's playing for Texas Tech, this could be a move that takes them over the top, especially considering, no knock on Burton Morton, Morton struggled against Oregon. Now having a guy who's far more dynamic, that is far more of a playmaker, a better runner, there's a real chance here that Texas Tech makes it much further in the CFP in 2026.
I know we're in a couple group chats together, Joe, but I sent into one group chat specifically during that Oregon-Texas Tech game, and the question was, if Brennan Sorsby is your quarterback right now instead of Baron Morton, what's the score of this football game? Because They hung with Oregon for a while, man. It was just the offense could get nothing going against Oregon. Texas Tech's defense actually played relatively well throughout the entirety of that football game. They enough to be in that game in the end. So Brennan Sorsby, I think, could be that missing link to making a potential deeper playoff run and not just being one and outs like we saw Texas Tech this year. So I think he could be a part of the winning formula for sure. I will say this, though, Joe, and I would love your perspective on it because I'm kind of in between on this, right? I think Brennan Sorsby is going to go to Texas Tech. I think he's going to put up a lot of numbers. I think Texas Tech is going to win a lot of football games, just like we saw Texas Tech win a lot of football games this past year. But are we certain, or do we have enough data to say that Brennan Sorsby can go from potential second rounder, maybe late first rounder if a team gets desperate, to a guy that's a slam dunk first round pick? Is there any sample size to say that Joey McGuire can take that raw quarterback and develop him into that first rounder? Or is he going to be exactly what he was at Cincinnati and still win a lot of football games because he's on a damn good football team? That's the debate I have, because we saw his name linked to Indiana early in the process. We saw his name linked to Lane Kiffin and LSU in the process. I maybe would have felt better about pro projection in either of the other two landing spots, but obviously he's going to win a lot of games with the Red Raiders. I'm just curious how this affects his NFL draft projection.
Well, one of the things that kind of I feel like happens a lot that we sometimes as draft analysts that we don't always acknowledge is that sometimes when guys end up having runs where they finish the year strong and it's in a postseason setting, now there's more of a postseason setting for these players to prove themselves. If they win the Big 12 and he plays well, unlike what Morton did, Morton was shaky against BYU and also was shaky against Oregon. If he plays well and then they go on a multi-game run in the CFP, or at the very least he plays really well in a first-round loss, whatever it ends up being, I would argue that could be what boosts him up. At the current moment, he is in that weird no man's land of, is he a first-round pick or is he not? Right. I would feel like having success in the right setting would be what can boost him. And that's why you pick a Texas Tech. I know that LSU fans do say that, oh, he wasn't exactly expected to come to LSU, but at the same time, part of the reason why he probably didn't want to go to LSU is it's uncertain what the future looks like for LSU for this upcoming season. Is it a rebuilding year? Do they think that they can compete immediately? Texas Tech might be losing some guys to the NFL, but there's a little bit more of a tangible, hey, we got really close. We're bringing back some key pieces. You step right in, we go a step even further. I think that it's the context of where he's performing that could look good in, at the end of the day, the eyes of decision makers that have old school philosophies of he was just a winner, he looked really good in the big moments, and all that kind of shit that we always talk about.
Well, and I will say, I mean, because you make a good point of Texas Tech, and obviously they have more stability because they're coming off of a really successful year. But they're also a team that if they have to overhaul a roster and change a lot from players leaving and players coming in, it's a lot easier to overhaul in the Big 12 than it is for a team to overhaul in an SEC or a Big 10 or that type of conference. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that he has the support in order to become a no doubt first round selection. I guess more my question was, are we certain that he will be prepared to be an NFL quarterback? Because that's a difference, right? Because players get drafted in the first round that have, especially at the quarterback position, that have no business going there because they're not mentally or physically prepared to be an NFL starting quarterback. I'm just interested to see how things work out with Brennan Sorsby because all the physical gifts are there. Can Joey McGuire and that Texas Tech staff get the most out of him and improve the technical aspects, the mental aspects, in order for him to be a slam dunk top 10 pick when all is said and done?
Let's hit on one more guy that caught our attention that's not necessarily one of the bigger name guys. There's obviously a lot of attention on quarterbacks. Hollywood Smothers going to Alabama is pretty significant. I do think that this doesn't solve all their woes. Alabama had major issues trying to run the ball. Major issues. I think that their offensive line did not play up to expectation in some of their biggest games, which led to them not getting a lot of push in the interior. But the biggest thing for me that was annoying watching this Alabama run game, it felt like it lacked explosiveness. Daniel Hill's 240 pounds. He is the perfect short yardage running back in college football. Unless he leans down, that's probably not going to change, that he's not going to be explosive. Jam Miller, really solid player. He's not exactly a spark plug guy that's going to gas you in space. He's got good vision, but he's also banged up a lot. Smothers gives you a different layer, and this was a layer that they needed. They needed somebody that was going to be shifty, that was going to be, you get him a little bit of room, and he's going to take advantage of it. I think that now we've got a more of a well-rounded RB group that is going to be far more dangerous for Alabama. It doesn't solve all their problems, but it at least gets them closer to being a more balanced offense in 2026.
I think that this is a situation where Kalen DeBoer might finally have the type of running back that he wants in his offense, to your point, right? Like, he walked into a stable of known commodities or a stable of former high recruits, and he had to kind of make the best out of what he had to fit into his system, because he is a very spread-oriented coach. He does want to create space, both in the pass and the run game. Hollywood's had a fascinating journey from freshman at Oklahoma to 2 years at NC State, and now he is where he is. But he is much more 195 pounds, very explosive, tight area quickness, makes guys miss in tight quarters. He's like that type of dude. So I think that Alabama is going to be able to create some plays, both in the run and pass game, that put him in one-on-one situations, whether that's in the screen game, whether that is working him out of the backfield in different angle routes or wheel routes, that type of thing, one-on-one against linebackers, or in the run game, which I think is going to be a lot more heavy inside-outside zone-oriented now, not as much gap scheme, because you don't have a big physical bruiser in a Hollywood Smothers. He is a change of pace, give him a crease, let him create, let him use his vision, and then hopefully hit a home run occasionally. So I think that I think it's just more a showing, Joe, that Kalen DeBoer is putting more and more of his touches on this offense to what he wants to look like. He's not this physical, downhill, power-oriented coach. He's the guy that wants to take advantage of, manufacture the space that he can.
We'll see what happens with the remaining weeks or time of the transfer portal being open. Comment below what your favorite move was in the transfer portal so far and what moves you want to see happen. Hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll be back with more.